Welcome to Riflescope Operation 101. In this video, we're going to show you how to bore sight a rifle scope without tools. It's actually a relatively simple process of aligning the bore with the line of sight on a target downrange. If you do this properly and do it with enough precision, you should be able to establish a gross zero with this, assuming your rifle shoots small enough. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to do both of those, how to establish and bore sight a rifle and get a gross zero. Everything seems to be mounted good, so I'm going to play with the rifle a bit to ensure that I got everything adjusted appropriately. Not only that it's level this way, but my eye relief is correct and that everything's working fine. I'm going to make sure I'm going to use magnification, turn it up and down. Before I invest ammunition into this zero, I want to make sure I didn't screw something up. So make sure my ergonomics are correct. I close my eyes, I lay down on the rifle, open my eyes, and I can see nice and perfect. If I crank the scope all the way up to max power while I'm doing this, it'll be the most fussy. When I'm at lower powers, the eye box, or the area in which I can see a perfect, nice sight picture here, is going to be less fussy on lower magnifications. So I might not notice if I'm misaligned or if something's out of whack. So if I crank it all the way up into the highest powers, it's going to be the most fussy. I can get behind it and have a really good idea of if it's on center, if my head's lined up properly behind it, and if everything is set up correctly. And it seems to be good, so we shall try. So now we're going to attempt to bore sight this scope. First thing we have to do is be able to see down the bore. So I'm going to remove the bolt, and I'm going to fold the stock off to the side. If you had a cheek piece on a bolt action where the stock was not removable, you might have to lower the cheek piece so you can look straight down the bore. You don't want to be crooked behind the bore, you want to be looking straight down the axis of the bore, okay? And so we need to remove anything from the rifle that inhibits our vision of that bore. If this is an AR-15, we're going to remove the lower, take out the bolt, and look down the back of the bore. So I'm looking down the bore, and you can see I got a little fouling in there. Pull her back. I'm looking down the bore. Now with the naked eye I can see the top of that fence post, and then I simply come up and I want to look through the rear of the scope and ensure that I'm getting the same picture when I'm looking through the rear of the rifle scope. It's very important when you're doing this to have your eye perfectly centered behind the axis of the bore to where you have 360 degrees of equal visible rifling. Just like if you're looking through a peep sight, you also want that target perfectly aligned in the exact center of that bore, aligned with the exact center of the target you're looking at. If you accomplish this, you're actually going to be very close, even at 100 yards. It's not uncommon to either be right on or maybe only a couple minutes of angle off. The more time you take to get everything perfectly aligned, the closer it's going to be. So I'm looking down the bore hole. I got down the bore hole centered the right fence post, the top center part. I come up here, the rifle's not being disturbed, and I can adjust this appropriately to where my sights are indexed on the same spot the bore is pointed at. That should get me pretty darn close right there on paper. Now, the more fussy you are with this, just like aiming, the more close it's going to be when you actually shoot your first round. You can do this at closer range. Probably a good idea to do it at 25 yards if you're not used to doing this. It'll work the same way when you start to adjust. Right now I got it at 100. So that looks like it's pretty darn close. We're going to see how that looks. As is true in any other precision project, the more time you take to get everything just perfect, the less resources you have to spend. I don't want to spend a lot of ammo here, so I'm making sure everything's perfectly aligned and steady on the target before I let it fly. Being that I was completely satisfied and everything being perfectly steady and my sights being aligned, I have a lot of confidence that where this round landed is going to be an accurate representation of the adjustment I need to make. Being that my reticle has the same units of measurement as the turrets on this arc and scope, I simply measure how far off from the center of the target the bullet hole was using the reticle, and that's the adjustment I will need to make on the turrets. So I'm 4 total minutes to the left. That means I need to come 4 to the right. That's 16 clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Right there. And so I am a minute of angle high, and so all I have to do is bring it a minute of angle down. And there's 4 clicks for each minute. So 1 minute is 4 clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Again, with the follow-up shot, I'm going to take special care to make sure everything's perfect with my sight alignment and marksmanship before I send the round. Means that the turrets are very reliable and they're tracking. This should put me right on target. Perfect. Idealistically, this is how it's going to work out. If the scope is tracking appropriately, if you got good ammo and a good rifle and the shooter's holding up his end of the bargain, you should have absolutely no problem getting right in the bullseye vicinity with the first follow-up shot after you see where it's printing. Now, if your rifle and scope and ammunition combination does not print this degree of resolution at range, if it has a larger group size, you might have to spend a few more rounds, 3 to 5 rounds, to get a reasonable degree of confidence in where your gross zero is going to be. Now, gross zero is not a true statistical zero. That's something that's a lot more detailed, with a lot more scientific considerations to take into the end of the equation. We'll show you how to do that on the follow-up video that we're going to post on Patreon. But this is going to get you pretty darn close. So now all we have to do is slip the outer turret scales to 0. The outer turret is affixed to the inner post with 3 Allen screws, typically on most rifle scopes. On the Arkin, it's 3. Just going to loosen those up. We're going to slip the number 0 to the exact rear of the scope where there's a little mark. We're going to retighten those screws, and then we'll set the 0 stop. Okay. So now to set the 0 stop on this particular scope, the Arkin is actually very easy. A lot of them have a Z-stop or a drum or a Pac-Man that turns backwards inside out. There's all kinds of different mechanical ways to accomplish a 0 stop. This is probably the most simple. We simply turn this in. Okay. So now I can come up in my adjustment, and when I come back down, this should stop on that flat piece of metal on the drum. And that's what you call a positive stop right there. It is bottomed out, and we are indexed to 0. So now what we're going to do is we're going to verify that this 0 is in fact statistically true for the multitude of different environmental factors and shooting position factors we're going to encounter in the field. Exactly how we balance that out and exactly how we determine how much weight we want to put into these different environmental factors depends on your operational environment. We're going to cover that video in more detail on the Real Dope series and Patreon. Hopefully this video was helpful and the ones preceding it. Thank you as usual for watching. I appreciate all your support. Please check out the commentaries and the description for more detailed information on our instructional and tutorial services we're doing on different platforms. Thank you very much for watching.